adding the vacations in to my annual planning forced me to get more into the habit of prioritizing my personal life when it came to planning for the future, because I just wasn't like wired into my brain, because I just want to work, and build. So that's been a big benefit for me. And then by planning those in, actually picking spots on the calendar ahead of time, like we actually take those vacations, I can budget for those vacations, and it leads to a stronger marriage.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Brotherhood Beyond Business podcast. Me and Joe today are going to be diving into why vacations are important for entrepreneurs, why you actually need to build in some time in your schedule to create the harmony between you and your family. This buys you time with your family because, hey, I might not be able to give as much time during a 2-month span when we're really focused on business. I'm going to go all in for a good week or however long your vacations are. So I'm going to kick it off. Joe loves vacations. I'm going to have Joe kick off like why vacations are important for him and how he kind of balances it in his life.
Like that's kind of interesting that you just said that, because I've never, we talk about buying speed, right? You buy mentoring, you buy coaching, you buy speed in your business, but taking a vacation is quite literally buying time with your family because it costs money. And I just never really thought of that statement until you said that right then, like actually buying time. For me, I have 3 kids. Family's very, very important to me. So a few years back, I would say probably 5 or 6 years back, part of my annual planning process began to involve trips alone with my wife, and then trips with the family, and then business trips. So it's kind of like 3 buckets for each year. Sometimes they do overlap. Like my wife is now a part of the business, so we'll go on business trips together. But I started that because it helped me truly be optimistic for the year beyond something business related. I think you and I used to talk about how I always talk about how like eventually you run out of passion, and you're working in your business. You're building your business, right, to build a legacy, or you've got a different purpose than when you started. And I'm like that now, but if I'm going to plan something, or if I'm going to set some goals, it's always focused on the business. It's like, all right, what do we need to do in the business to get to this next step? So adding the vacations in to my annual planning forced me to get more into the habit of prioritizing my personal life when it came to planning for the future, because I just wasn't like wired into my brain, because I just want to work, and build. So that's been a big benefit for me. And then by planning those in, actually picking spots on the calendar ahead of time, like we actually take those vacations, I can budget for those vacations, and it leads to a stronger marriage for us. It gets me memories with my kids, which from doing this consistently year after year, our goal is to hit at least three family vacations a year. I want to get at least 2 trips alone with Melody. It doesn't always mean they have to be big, like long trips, but those are generally my like baseline goals. And if we can get anything on top of that, it's a bonus. But it's changed my perspective. Like I talked about, like where it was always build, business, do this. Now it's like maybe it's where I'm at in my life, but the most important thing is memories with my family, because they've just become the most valuable thing to me in my life. They're fulfilling for me. And the vacations help me create those memories, and nobody can ever take those away. So that's where the harmonies come from for me, is like adding that into my annual planning, which got me in the habit of focusing more on the personal side of things in a time when I never would have thought about it. And then now it's just become a part of the routine. It's interesting though to think about sometimes how vacations can be stressful as it pertains to work. Like you just said, you took 3 vacations in 6 weeks, something like that. Like, was there a time where you were thinking about, I'm not getting this done, or I just missed this opportunity, or like how'd that weigh on you while you were gone?
Probably less than I thought it would. I
Mhm.
think prepping for the 3 weeks of vacations in 6 weeks was, I did a lot of prepping for it, and I think that helped out because I was really nervous of not that. So it wasn't client issues I was worried about. We've got things pretty systemized that either if I'm gone, Nate can handle those questions. And we have AI that can answer most of the questions. I don't really get a ton of client questions unless it's like, hey, I need a slight update on my website, or Trev, can you answer me a question? I have a strategy that I need advice on. So realistically, I don't have as many client questions as sometimes I think I do.
Mhm.
And so the nice part is I'm like, but I'm prepping for all those things. So I prepped my clients beforehand before I left for that, meaning like, hey, I had reminders set up for this, and the ones that consistently contact me. I made sure they knew I was out of town and wouldn't be answering during this time. So ask anything ahead of time. So I think I did a lot of prepping on the front side because I was nervous of that. But the other thing that I did that was beneficial to me during this 6 weeks was I made, and this was a hard part for me too. I made an effort to remind myself the goal is not to make progress in my business right now. Is to make sure that I'm a fighter during this time, right? And so my only job is to fight fires during the weeks that I'm back
Hmm.
to make sure that everything's moving forward. And the cool part is I had no fires during this time, and like I'm blessed that there was no fires. But the idea was is I wanted to go in with the expectation is my job is not to move any of the businesses forward. My job is to make sure those businesses just don't fall apart, and then I have seasons where I can move it forward. And that's the hard part for me. That's the stressful part because I feel like in certain ways I'm 6 weeks behind my annual goals, like what I wanted to chase at, what I'm chasing towards.
Hmm.
Like where the Brotherhood's going, I'm like, oh man, I'm 6 weeks behind. Like this pace, this is going to slow down our roadmap. And so there's different things like that that stressed me out. But the other part is I had a lot of like time away from technology and I was able to think deeper without even meaning to think deeper. Like my brain while driving or sitting on the beach or hiking went to these like cool places where I'm like, oh, but like what about this? And like what about that? And like allowed me to think through some things because I'm always doing work that that I'm not really processing the way my I used to, when I was younger, I had to drive back and forth to Illinois to Iowa when we owned our second GCP location. And I had to drive back like every 6 weeks. And that's a 7 hour drive. And man, my mind created so many ideas during that 7 hour drive every 6 weeks that really launched our business forward during that time. And I haven't really had a lot of that built in space because like we're doing good things. But the problem is when you're doing good things, you're just focused on building and you're not focused on strategy design. And so these vacations for me create this strategy design time, let my brain process the things it wants to process, but I don't really have time because I schedule out every minute of the week. I don't schedule out nearly as much strategy time because like, well, if I'm going to get all this stuff done in this period, I only have this much windows of time and strategy doesn't always fit in those windows.
Yeah, it's like definitely helps on things like driving, but you can kind of get into a flow state with some of those monotonous activities, or you just get more rest, or like you have some alone time early in the morning before you get started on your hike that day, whatever it might be for vacation. Like, or for me, it's usually before my kids get up and I'm trying to drink some, like if we're on a cruise, trying to drink some coffee out on the balcony of the room or whatever it might be. Like I have made many business decisions when I've been on vacation. I think that's a good point to bring up just because you kind of clear a lot out. I don't get as worried about like falling behind on like certain things like tasks that I still do that I probably shouldn't do anymore. But like as far as the business goes, we have really great staff. Like, and you're talking about the Brotherhood and Level Up, which are relatively new businesses. I've got Breakaway, which has been open for over 13 years. So I've got a solid staff in place that can help me take care of everything whenever I'm out of town, which is kind of what we're all working towards, right? But I have had those same moments of clarity on vacation where maybe I was holding off on a decision, like a challenging decision, that I knew needed to be made, but I just kept holding off, and then you can kind of just let it click. I didn't even think about it that way, but that happens a lot, especially on long drives too.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about as we were talking is when vacations for me over the years have been a weird dichotomy in the sense that I have a certain savings goals that I'm trying to build towards. And so it's like vacations obviously pull from those funds, right? So it's like that idea like, hey, I can't put away as much money as I want. So it's kind of that dichotomy of like vacation versus building up more in a way wealth. And so the issue for me is growing up, my dad was always big on building wealth over experiences, right?
Hmm.
And so in the back of my head is always like, oh man, like we could be putting an extra 15,000 away this month or this year into, investing and that kind of stuff. Or realistically, me and Eric could probably take about $15,000 worth of vacations in a year. And so it's like, man, because we always try to do at least 1 week. So she's a teacher. So we get 1 week we get spring break, we get fall break, and then we get a summer vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we usually try to take 3 vacations a year if we can. This year is a little bit extra just because her family had a 50-year anniversary that we went to, and then we just had a last minute San Diego trip that's like, hey, let's go. San Diego's only a 7 hour drive for us. So it wasn't that expensive a trip, but it was a 5-day trip to make sure you drive 7 hours. You want to be there for a few days. And so in terms of that, like the tough part for me when I'm figuring out vacations is I love the time away from the business, but the other part for me is like, man, I'm justifying it in my brain. Like, okay, this is how much money could be going towards this thing versus like putting towards vacations. And so I think that's probably the biggest obstacle I run into. Not maybe that's maybe not just entrepreneur thing, just as a man trying to lead my family financially. That's probably the biggest obstacle that I run into, less about the business and more about the finances.
Yeah, I've probably been on the opposite end of the spectrum there because I was not raised that way. But I agree with you, and I wish I had more awareness and mindfulness of the investment aspect and building wealth. That was something that didn't really become important to me until like the last few years. Like really important, as I hit 40 and I'm like, oh, it's like a whole situation change, a whole life season change. But I was not raised in that way because I don't know that my parents were doing any investing. And I didn't have mentors when I was younger really teaching me much about that. So I've had a pretty high value on experiences for a long time now, but we probably would have a lot more saved if we hadn't been getting all those experiences. But I'm thinking as we're talking about this, I said I like to take 3 family vacations a year. Sometimes we have friends come with us too. That's a new thing in our lives where friends come with us on vacation because we got a couple of groups of friends that we're really close with, and that's really changed vacations and made them really, really fun. Because usually they have kids, they're in similar life seasons, so we make memories with them too. But think about, like I said, 3 vacations with my family and at least 2 vacations with my wife Melody, and then you just said you guys get 3 vacations a year based on fall break and whatever else you said, like summer break. What would you say? Like, let's say you could go back and talk to me or to Danny, not to you, because I feel like you were raised a little bit differently, but to like me or Danny, and the business has just opened, and we're talking about vacation, like because when you first open a business and you're a staff of 1 or 2, right? You gotta handle everything. Like, what's the perspective you think a new business owner should have as it pertains to vacation?
I think vacation is different within probably the first 5 years of your business. And I'm just guessing, like based on finances, knowing our first 5 years, we're the toughest usually in business. I think vacation doesn't always need to be a week long. I
Hmm.
think that's where people get it wrong. It's vacation means I'm going to be leaving for a full week or 2 weeks. The best vacations for me a lot of times are 3-day vacations, right? Take like, okay, we're going to leave Thursday night, be gone get a full day there Friday, full day there Saturday, drive home on Sunday. We don't have little kids, but I'm sure if you had little kids, that'd probably almost be easier because they wouldn't be so exhausted from vacation. So it's the idea is like, I think for a small business owner just getting starting out, I think doing at least 2 of those a year is like a bare minimum. Even if you're not married, if you're not married and you're still single, I think that's like clarity space. So before I met Erica, I used to take a year vacation. Every single year I'd take a vacation by myself. It
Hmm.
would be just a long weekend, and it would be a full clarity break, right? So I would just literally go to Wisconsin, so just north of us in Illinois. I'd go to Wisconsin and get like a cabin, and I'd be there for 2 full days of just like, it was just me by myself, like hang out in the woods, thinking out strategy,
It
right?
sounds
So maybe it
wonderful.
wasn't truly a
Hmm.
vacation the way people think about
That's a
vacations, but like that,
vacation. I promise. That's
yeah,
definitely
for
a
me,
vacation. That's
for the
delightful.
phases that we're in that life when you're first in your first 5 years, and now I still would love one of those. I just can't justify taking that time away from my wife
Hmm.
to do something like that. But the idea is like that was really, really fun, and it gave me escapism. It got me a chance to get away a little bit. But I think it should be required in your first few years because that's where you like get a chance to like recover. It's just like refreshing for the next phase.
Hmm.
And so I think that did a good job for that. And as I get older, I think I still need to remind myself vacations don't always need to be a week long because it's a lot easier to take a 4-day vacation than it is to take, a full week off from your business. And also financially, it makes huge differences. I've got to remind myself, like, not every vacation has to be this huge, long thing.
I think that's good advice. I think there still should be vacations. There should be some sort of getaway, even if you're not making money yet. Like, because you can grind, 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 and then get away for a Saturday, right? You can get away for a Sunday. Just go somewhere local, especially if you're married and you have a wife. You need to pull your head out of that stuff. Like, even if you got to shut it down, but I think it would be good advice. Like, that was something we always still did. We made sure we still had, because we had a son. By the time I started my business, and she was still working full time, so there was still we had to find time to get away, especially if your spouse is wrapped up in the business with you. If you're both going at that thing together, like as a team, I have an interesting perspective because it was all me doing the business to start with, or running the business, as far as my family is concerned. And then 8, 10 years into it, Melody's now a major part of it. So she has to learn a lot of the lessons that I learned, like, took me 5 or 6 years to learn, right? Like, sometimes you just got to shut the laptop. If you have kids, if you have a spouse. If I didn't, I'd probably just be working all the time. But sometimes you just got to shut the laptop. Like, you can't go from, if you're working outside of your business and then participating in the business, it's like you can't always do your regular job, then open the laptop for the business and go to it. Like, sometimes you have to shut it down. So I think that would be good advice for a new business owner. Um, I mean, unless they're deeply in debt or they're just running their business into the ground. Like, it would be based on financial numbers. You could probably figure it out no matter what. Would
And vacation doesn't have to be expensive either. It can be like a trip where you go, camping. You just literally go camping for the weekend, which is like probably $14 a night, like, but you can make vacations very cheap as well if you're on a budget.
And it can be, I like the idea of the shorter, like, you might need to shift your perspective, shift your opinion of what a vacation is over the years. Like, it, again, doesn't need to be a week long thing. It could just be a weekend, but there's always some level of clarity. And I think for us as a family of five, it's easier. Like, it's when if you don't go on vacation, but you have this great weekend just at home or whatever, maybe you didn't get like a ton of time for clarity. Maybe you did. Depends on circumstances, but you always feel refreshed when you get back to the business, right? Like, for me, it could be Saturday, let's say. Like, I got done working on Friday. I worked out really hard. That's a great start to the weekend. I just hang out with my family that night. And then Saturday, I got to mow the grass, which is going to take a while. I've got to like edge and weed eat and all that stuff, but I'm outside, I'm barefoot and, just doing my thing. And then that night, like hanging out by a fire, my kids are out there. We might make s'mores or something like that. That to me is like the picture perfect weekend that I don't ever need a vacation from. And I can come back to work after a weekend, go to church on Sundays, read the Bible every day, all that stuff like fulfills me, fills my cup, and allows me to come back to work refreshed. Like, you can change your perspective on what a vacation is and just learn what fills your cup and do that from home too. I mean, but outside of that, going back to the shorter vacations, like you do like a weekend thing, even with 3 kids, like just going away for the weekend is, if it's done right, if we don't make it too stressful, then it's just as refreshing as that weekend that I just described. Whereas sometimes being gone for a full week or more can be kind of tricky because it depends on what you're doing. If you're like us and you want to go to Disney World or something, like, those actually, that you almost have to call it a trip more than a vacation because you're kind of busy while you're there, like making sure you get to the ride and getting a dinner reservation, whatever it is. Like, there's a little bit less relaxing to something like that. So I think sometimes those can kind of weigh on you while you're on the trip. And it's not as beneficial as just getting a few of those short ones in throughout the year.
Well, yeah, and that's something I think the expectation of what a vacation is. People sometimes think like, if I'm not flying to Paris and doing a European vacation, it's not a vacation, or I'm not taking my kids to Disney World, it's not a vacation. And growing up, my dad was very focused on money always because we didn't have any money growing up until he finally like hit it big with his patent.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea was like our vacations were driving to national parks, which are relatively cheap to do,
Mm-hmm.
staying in tents and stuff. But we got to see the United States. My dad he didn't not take us places. We definitely we'd go camping on weekends too, just like to local like campgrounds near us. And so like he was very busy with business, but then that would be his escape. Like, hey, let's just go to the lake for the weekend, get a tent by the lake, and we just go fishing for the weekend. So those are kind of his shutdowns. They were just always like inexpensive vacations. And I think sometimes I sit there thinking like, man, maybe I always, because me and Erica don't have kids, we go for more of the glamorous vacations because I don't think I want a tent. I'm 40. I don't want a tent anymore. But,
Yeah.
but the idea is my dad was 10 in his 40s. But the idea is we don't have kids, so we don't really think that way. But I think there's a way people can do it a lot cheaper. And then one thing that you were saying I thought was really, like, I've been doing a lot over the last year, but really the last few months I've been working on like hobbies again. I've been trying to find real hobbies to do. Like right now I'm working on a sports betting hobby where my goal is I love to watch sports and I want to make it valuable, worth my time. Like, can I justify watching like the Broncos all season long? Well, if I could make some money while watching the Broncos, at least I can justify my time watching the Broncos to my wife. Like, hey, we made, 10,000, we made a few extra $1,000 this year. Why I watch the Broncos? I can't always just win our fantasy football league every year. It's not fair to you guys.
No, we were just talking about that before this call.
Yeah. But in terms of that, like, I do think having hobbies is another way to escape. That's a whole nother podcast we can do in the future. But I do think with the vacation side, the whole concept that we're trying to say is it's not about spending money. It's truly just creating that harmony between life. We're not trying to create balance. Balance means that you're probably vacationing all the time. That's not what we're talking about. We're trying to create harmony between that. And we're probably looking at the side with families. Your family needs that individual focused attention, and they don't need you to be on vacation on your phone or on your computer. This is meaning like you're on vacation, totally dialed in with your kids at Disney World, totally dialed in with them at the lake, fishing with them, trying. And if you've ever fished with little kids, like there's no chance for you to look at the phone because you're rebaiting that thing all the time.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you're not doing
Or
any fishing. Your kids.
exactly. You're not fishing at all. You're just chasing people around. So that's like the fun of being of that stage of life. And the cool part, the last thing I'd like to lead with is like with kids for you, is kids create a time clock for you because okay, they only have certain points in their life where this kind of vacation or this kind of thing is going to be impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And if I like don't take vacations as they're growing, I'm going to miss out on this stage of life where I can probably only do this with them at this time in life because they're going to grow older and they're not going to want to do this thing anymore. So talk about like kind of the timeline, like as your kids kind of change over the years.
I don't think I could overemphasize what you just said more. Like that's been one of the biggest learning experiences of the last 3 years for me is because I have an 18-year-old and then I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. So it's like two completely different phases of life for my wife and I having one child. And then 10 years, I know my fingernails are painted, but
I was going to bring that up after the podcast. But
I have
okay,
a daughter.
buddy.
Yeah, that's my daughter. I'll let my daughter do anything, man. That girl, she meets me at the door, jumps up, squeezes my neck, tells me she loves me, kisses me on the cheek, all that stuff when I get home.
I thought you were becoming a Bears fan following Caleb Williams or something.
Nah. I'm like her hero, dude. I'll let her paint my nails anytime she wants. But yeah, so that is 100% accurate what you just said. And I'm experiencing it firsthand because we're at a point where we will go on a trip. Like we just went on a cruise not too long ago, and we only took our 2 younger kids because our 18-year-old didn't want to go. And he can stay home. Like our mother-in-law lives with us, so we're not quite letting him stay at home too long by himself yet, but he could if he needed to. I mean, and you're there as a parent and you're kind of like, I just had this really fun experience doing whatever it might be. I just saw this really great show and you're like, I wish my other kid was here. But they wouldn't be that happy if they're there because they just don't want to be there. And it's just, yeah, the trips change. Like he and I have that alone trip that we take. We go to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios. And that's something he loves. We have a blast getting scared all night long. So yeah, that's a big thing with kids. And it's important to be able to have the clarity and a mind that is clear or a mind that is open enough when you're on vacation so that you can purposefully be mindful of those moments, whether it's with your older kid acting like he's younger again because you just happen to catch him in that moment, or just the stuff when you're at the water park with your younger kids, I guess. Whatever it is. But yeah, I've experienced that firsthand. And that might be why vacations help to create so much harmony in my life, or whatever we're doing. Like I talked about, sitting out by the fire with my young ones making s'mores, because my older one will come out there and that's like mentoring time for him with me at times. So that's a major thing if you have kids when it comes to vacations and being present, because you don't get that stuff back. I mean, I literally see it. I remember I was so much harder on my older kid than I am on my 2 younger ones because I just wanted to make sure he turned out right and he didn't do any, he didn't end up going down the wrong path and all that stuff. And there's so many things I wish I could have done like just differently to show him love as he was growing up, as with the way I am with my kids now. So it's important.
Well, I mean, also for you, there's the age difference, right?
Raising
a kid in your early 20s versus raising kids in your 30s. You just are in a more relaxed state of life. You've made enough money to like survive, that kind of stuff. Like, I do think the stages of life do matter for you when you have kids as well.
Definitely. Absolutely. Things were a lot more stressful before, even with one kid.
All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for the day. The last thing I'll leave everybody with is me and Joe don't take vacations lightly, in the sense that we do plan stuff. Like this is part of our annual planning. I think that's a thing too to think about. If you don't have family vacations as part of your annual plan, you need, and first of all, if you're not doing annual planning, that's step 1. But step 2 is making sure that you have your vacations part of your annual plan. That way your family has expectations too when they come, and your wife can be like, hey, we have this vacation coming up here. So that way she has something to look forward to as well. And when you're going to have time dedicated to your family. So when it comes down to vacations, guys, make sure it's part of your life. It's not a detractor. It's an addition. It's a multiplier in your life. As long as you think of it as a multiplier, it's not something that takes away from your business. All right, guys, have a great day. Talk to you later.
Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in. Brotherhood is more than business. It's about leading from the front, leveling up in every domain, and becoming the CEO of your own life. Step up, execute, and we'll see you in the next one.